Good morning, everyone. Today we're going to break down Sirsasana or headstand. So we're going to do different variations that'll help bring some of the flexibility that's needed to come into headstand and the shoulder strengthening support you need to protect the neck in headstand. And then we'll play with different ways to start to come up into it once you feel like you have that balance between flexibility and strength. All right. So a lot of it can be developed right in dolphin pose, which is like similar to downward facing dog but on the forearms. So looking at a couple of different variations on dolphin, when you're first kind of weaker in the shoulders, it can be nice to clasp the hands in dolphin because then the arms are kind of supporting one another. And so we'll look at that first. You want to keep the elbows about shoulder distance apart. Right? A lot of times the elbows want to be too wide, and that's going to make it a lot easier for the shoulders to collapse and lose that strength there. So the elbows are about the same distance as the inner shoulders. You also don't want them too narrow. That's going to make it almost impossible to come up. So somewhere right in the middle. Right? So as you're coming up into dolphin with the hands clasped, then you can use the clasp of the hands to help push up with the hips. So you're not collapsing into the arms, you're using the connection of the forearms to press out, to press up, similar to how you would in downward facing dog. So you're pressing out of the shoulders, up into the hips, into the sit bones. So that's the first option. Once hands clasped feels good, you can try to keep the hands apart as the elbows stay in. And that's going to build even more strength in the shoulders. And so it happens sometimes as you come up, the elbows come out and the hands come in, which again means you're collapsing into the shoulders. So the strength you need to hold the elbows in as the hands stay apart is really that shoulder stability that is again going to help support the neck in Sirsasana. So the forearms staying parallel to each other. See if you can come into dolphin pose. Okay, that's a good test to see if the shoulders can stay strong as the elbows hug in and hands stay apart. And again, you're not collapsing into the arms, you're pressing out of the arms back into the legs. So once this is feeling good, you can play with what you're focusing on in dolphin. And if you walk the feet more in and try to get the heels towards the mat, you're really working that stretch, that length down the backs of the legs. And so you can play with that no matter how close the feet are, just walking the feet as close to the elbows as they can get to feel that stretch, that length. Okay. So that is another option for dolphin that will help. Okay. And then finally, it's starting to play with really coming into the shoulders to build that shoulder strength. So here you can either have hands apart or hands clasped, which is the hold you'll use for headstand. But again, to build more strength in the shoulders, hands apart will help build more strength initially. So as you start to walk the toes in, now rather than trying to get the heels down, you're going to come to the balls of the feet towards the toes. So now the weight is coming into the shoulders. And you're finding this lift up through the abdomen, through the sit bones, by pressing out of the forearms. So those are two things to really work on, the back of the legs stretching and the shoulder strengthening. It's going to help you start to come into headstand. So now I'll start to bring you into some options for coming into headstand. I recommend putting a blanket under the head just as a preventative measure. It feels a little better on the head. But ultimately, you're putting minimal weight on the head. So the first thing you have to find is where the pressure goes on the head. Okay? If you're too far forward in the head, you'll end up pinching the back of your neck. It's going to be right on the top of the head, the flat part of the head, which is going to help you find this Tadasana alignment. This alignment of really shoulders, hips, and heels when you're in the pose. Okay? So the first option in coming into this is, again, finding those Sirsasana hands where the hands are clasped. And then that bottom pinky that would be on the ground is going to tuck inside of the hands. And then I like to keep just a slight gap between the palms, right? So they're not squeezing together or collapsing out. And you can think of keeping the wrists in line with the hands and forearms rather than popping out or pulling in. I find gives me the most stability here. So the first option coming into this is to just have the head down and play with keeping the shoulders lifted. You want to avoid the shoulders collapsing here. I'll show you a little bit more clearly what I mean, right? As you're in dolphin with the head down, okay, even though the head is coming towards the mat, you're not dropping here. You're staying lifted in the shoulders. So the head, the neck, is hardly bearing any weight. You're just getting that feel of having the head closer to the ground. So the shoulders have to work harder to stay on the back rather than collapsing forward, which is really bad for the neck. Shoulders have to stay lifted, have to stay on the back. So once that feels good, you can start to play with drawing one leg at a time into the chest, and maybe both legs. I'll show you what both of those look like. So from dolphin, the head is down, shoulders stay lifted. Right, if you feel the shoulders collapse, I'll back off, come down, keep shoulders lifted, and then you can play with just one knee into the chest and start to come to the toes of the other foot. And try both sides. If that feels good, maybe both knees come into the chest. All right, and once it feels good doing one leg at a time, see if you can do both legs at the same time. Once it feels good doing the knees bent, right, see if you can do it with legs straight. Shoulders stay lifted. And then, again, it's shoulders, hips, and heels line up. Minimal weight on the head. And then if you are all the way extended with the legs, you want to be able to come out with the same control you came in. Okay, either with the legs straight or the knees bent. Keep the shoulders lifted. Minimal weight on the head. And whether you were playing with dolphin or actually coming up towards Sirsasana headstand, it's nice to spend some time in child's pose after. Alright, so feel free to reach out with any questions. Have a great rest of your day.